nuclear is coming back for mainly another reason is because many institutes have done some projections to see how we could meet the carbon neutrality objectives in 2050. And it is very clear from those studies that you cannot do that without nuclear on one side. As you know, nuclear does not emit greenhouse gases. And the second thing is that you need much more nuclear than is planned to reach those objectives, even if you have huge increases in renewable capacity.
Welcome to Energy Vista, a podcast on energy issues, personal and professional trajectories. I'm your host, Leslie Palti-Guzman. In each episode of this podcast, we chat with energy experts from all around the world. We exchange on timely energy issues as well on their life experience. You will learn a lot whether you're an energy aficionado or a newbie. It's January 31st, 2022, and time for a new Energy Vista episode. Today, I'm exchanging with Colette Lewiner, Senior Energy Advisor to Capgemini, Chairman, and Independent Board Director at several companies, including blue-chip companies listed at the CAC 40 on Euronext Paris, such as EDF, Bouygues Group, and so on. And we will get more into this during the segment on Colette's personal trajectory. And I'm very delighted to have Colette back. It's our first episode of 2022, but it's also the third time Colette is coming to the podcast. And as a cherished guest, we will discuss again some of the conclusions of the World Energy Market Outlook that Capgemini is putting together every year, and Colette is co-authoring the editorial introducing the report. But also importantly, as a scientist and expert on all things energy, electricity, utilities, infrastructure, investment, politics of energy, I thought about no better guest to discuss the current European energy crisis, but also the revival of nuclear. So Colette, hello, welcome.
Hello, Leslie. How are you?
Very good, thank you. So let's get right into the core of the topic today, which is the rising electricity and gas prices in Europe. We've seen this unfolding for the past year now, and we are at a point where we see high record prices due to higher increased demand, the recovery post-COVID, but also high gas prices, shortage of gas into Europe, high carbon prices. And you were telling me just before we started that you see that compared to 2020, the spot electricity prices in Europe has already multiplied by 10. So tell us a little bit how nuclear is back to the news and to the headlines due to this crisis.
I think really that, as you said, the crisis is due to many issues. One being the gas prices going up. Europe is very dependent on Russian gas, as you know, and the tensions between Russia and Ukraine are also pushing the price up since 2 weeks. Also, nuclear energy in Europe is not operating as the previous years, at least as in 2019. And also there was not a lot of wind in Northern Europe. So altogether, the gas reservoirs are low for the season. And the demand, as you said, is higher because the economy is recovering. And this pushes prices to unprecedented highs. So this is one point. The way the electricity spot price is built in the European system is such as the spot price is the price of the marginal power plant, meaning the one you need to add on the grid to balance consumption and production. And this is usually a gas plant or a coal plant. So now nuclear is coming back for, I think, mainly another reason is because many institutes have done some projections to see how we could meet the carbon neutrality objectives in 2050. And it is very clear from those studies that you cannot do that without nuclear on one side. As you know, nuclear does not emit greenhouse gases. And the second thing is that you need much more nuclear than is planned to reach those objectives, even if you have huge increases in renewable capacity.
So it seems that Europe and France, actually, except with Germany, are doing a U-turn. You remember, under Hollande presidency in France, also President Macron, initially there was this idea of declining nuclear generation, and we are now seeing, actually President Macron did a nuclear coming out in October and actually introducing nuclear as well as small modular reactor as a competitive asset for France's future leadership in green hydrogen, but also as a way, as you mentioned, to reach the goals of decarbonization.
Yes, we are expecting more clear announcements from the French president next week. He said that nuclear is part of the game. He insisted that in October on the SMRs, the small modular reactors. But of course, France and all countries will never reach those objectives only with SMRs. You need large reactors. This is very, very clear. So we are expecting announcements of 6 big reactors, we call EPR, European Pressurized Reactors, to be built, starting building in a few years and to be connected to the grid around 2040. Nuclear is a very long-term industry, so takes a lot of time. So this is announcements we are expecting, which are good. Another thing that is going to probably be confirmed is the inclusion of nuclear in the green European taxonomy. Europe has issued a green taxonomy to guide investments. And just before the end of the year, it has decided to add both gas on that transition way and nuclear. And this has to be confirmed in a few days or weeks. And we believe it will be confirmed. So this is, if you want, on the mid and long term, it is a big hope for nuclear industry. One of the European commissioners, Thierry Breton, has announced that we would need to invest more than $500 billion in nuclear industry from now to 2050 for new nuclear, and then you have to add to that 50 billion for refurbishing the existing plants. So it's huge investment in Europe, and you know that in new nuclear, Europe is not the main region. The main region building new nuclear plants is Asia, with China in front of everybody, but also India has plans, South Korea has plans, and others in that region.
So in retrospect, would you say that Germany made hasty decisions after the great Fukushima disaster? And I mean, we see now how it's playing out with the Russia-Ukraine gas crisis and the increased dependence of Germany on gas because of the phasing out of both at the same time nuclear and coal. But I see also a rising divergence between France and Germany in their strategy towards the energy transition.
Yes, I think it's a mistake. It was a purely political decision. It was because there were local elections just after the Fukushima disaster. And Angela Merkel, who was the chancellor, wanted to win them. She lost them anyhow. But then she decided to close. Not all plants have still been closed. They closed half of what was still working in December this year, and they will certainly close the second half next. We did also a mistake in France by closing 2 reactors, Fessenheim, which was the former president François Hollande's promise, but that Emmanuel Macron
honored,
honored, yes. So, yes, and other countries are doing similar mistakes, like Belgium, that decided to close its nuclear plants by 2025. So I think that was very short-sighted decisions, and people now realize, and the public opinion in France is also realizing that we need nuclear if we want to achieve the carbon neutrality objective.
But what about environmental opposition? I mean, there is concern regarding safety still and potentially waste management. There is a big Green Party in Germany that also maybe contributed to the decision of phasing out nuclear. Do you think in France we could see those kind of opposition growing, or not really?
There is. I would say it is decreasing. It was more important if you think if it were 2 years ago or 3 years ago than now. But of course it exists. It exists locally. Locally, there are two things. There are some opposition to a new nuclear plant, but on the other hand, the mayors, the cities that are nearby of the reactors are very much in favor because this is a lot of employment. Through the tax system, it's a lot of money for those cities. If you visit those cities, they have Olympic swimming pools and all what you can dream of. Huh? So they get a lot of money back. So the decision for building new nuclear plants, the big nuclear plants in France, is build them on existing sites, on sites where there are existing plants, because there is also the grid infrastructure, and also because the population is very much in favor. So I think that altogether probably we will get back to new reactors. We need to finish the one that is under construction, which is Flamanville.
EPR.
EPR should be in operation in 2023 now. I think that's very important. Also, recently there was an EPR that was put into operation in Finland, and it seems to work well. So we are confident that once it will be operating, it will work well. But I think this is an important milestone as well.
Yeah.
And the third difficulty is, I would say, financing. It's a lot of money. The program for the 6 new EPRs in France is around 60 billion euros, which is a lot. EDF has a very huge debt, has around 40 billion euros debt, not cash, but debt. And so how to finance that, it's going to be the question that will be debated in the weeks to come now. It has to be financed through a public financing in a way or another.
That's why the European taxonomy is so important also. It's to give the signals to investors. And to come back to this winter gas and electricity crisis, there is a shortage of nuclear power generation right now in France. A few reactors are being closed. Others are facing technical difficulties. And at a time where there is decisions also upcoming about lengthening the life of a couple of plants in France. Can you give us a little bit more understanding of the situation in France? And are we still at a critical moment given what's happening with Russian supply, or are we out of the wood or not yet?
No. We are not out of the woods. Well, in January, we were lucky. The weather was mild. In February is usually the coldest month of the year, so we shall see. February is still a very critical month. As you said, some nuclear reactors are missing because they're offline for mainly 2 reasons, I would say. First, because it's still a consequence of the COVID. During the COVID time in March to May 2020, it was not possible to do the refurbishing work that is usually done. And this has made big difficulties in the schedule of those refurbishing for many reasons. A lot of regulatory dates where you need to do such things in the maintenance of some equipment. So today, this is still one reason why we don't have the production that we should. Second reason is because we closed 2 reactors in Fessenheim. Now we're not there, we are closed now. And the third, which is linked this time to, I would say, the reactors getting older, it was found in two quite recent reactors, some corrosion that was not expected at all. And now they were closed to understand. So 4 reactors were closed. I found it in a 5th one.
So we have a total of 14 reactors closed this winter.
Yes, out of
56.
Out of 56. Yeah. So if we have a very cold winter, it will be a problem because Russia is playing with the gas. You know that you're an expert in gas, so you know it very well. They are honoring their long-term contracts. But as you know, the European Commission has done a lot of regulation to limit the long-term contract. which I think, in my point of view, is a mistake. So what Russia is doing, it is not providing a lot of spot on the market, and this is the reason why the prices are going up. We are getting more LNG than 1 month ago from the US, shale gas LNG, and from elsewhere. But LNG is still minor compared to the piped gas.
Yeah.
And Europe is importing 40% of its gas from Russia. So it's a big threat. Huh? And as you said, Germany is very, very dependent on Russia and the former Soviet Union European countries.
Yeah.
France is not so much. France has a
Yeah.
very, very well diversified supply in gas.
Yeah. But the current shortage of nuclear power generation in France can even aggravate the situation in Germany, because if France cannot re-export some of its surplus of nuclear generation, and we see also maybe at stakes the principle of solidarity between European countries, because each European countries will want to favor its own interests rather than...
They cannot do that. They cannot do that. The grid is totally interconnected. So if one country fails, it will immediately pose problem to everybody. So that's no country can fail. It's true, because usually, even when more reactors are operating, when it's very, very cold in France, we import electricity from Germany, because the Germans have much less electrical heating than the French. And the peak in the demand in France is linked to the electrical heating. They have gas heating, but if they don't have gas, so what do we do? So it's a real threat. And generally speaking, even without those circumstances, the security of electricity supply in Europe is going to be threatened, because countries are closing their coal plants massively. For some countries, Germany will close massively, Poland will close, and other countries, France also, we close a few plants we have, etc. So this is a very schedulable type of electricity, and we are in a certain way discovering that when there is no wind in north of Europe, we are lacking electricity. This is obvious. Huh? So closing too much schedulable power is going to be a problem as well. So. Yeah. So I think we'll have tense winters for the years coming.
Very interesting.
I don't want to be pessimistic.
Yeah, and so you mentioned the new technologies around nuclear, EPR, small modular reactors. Can you give us a sense of where we are in terms of those technological developments, and does it cut the time to market for those reactors? It seems that right now, the most convincing argument for nuclear is to cut faster greenhouse gas emission. And in the Capgemini latest report, there is a very interesting chart and figure showing that in terms of greenhouse gas emission, we're back at the pre-COVID time, and it will continue potentially to increase as coal is back, actually.
Yeah. I think 2021 is a record of greenhouse gases emission now. While 2020 was an exceptional low year because of economy.
Yeah. And the UN recently released this report on life cycle assessment of electricity generation, and they are trumpeting nuclear as a way to have the smallest impact on the environment among all electricity sources.
So on the new technologies, I would say that small modular reactors are not really a new technology. You can do small modular reactors with the same type of design, like a pressurized water reactor, a boiling water reactor. So it is only a question, it's of course a question of designing them. So the idea is not to build a big reactor, but to build small ones in tranches, if you want, 60 megawatts, 100 megawatt, and then you will assemble them to have, for example, 600 megawatt. The idea here is double. One, you have more passive safety features. And the second one is that being smaller, you can build part of the equipment in the plants, in production plants, and then you will assemble that as Legos, if you want, children are playing with Legos, on site. So you will assemble blocks if you want, and you will produce the blocks and assemble them on site. Of course, this is easier, and you need to remember that in the cost of 1 kilowatt hour from nuclear electricity, investment is 80% of the cost. So if you decrease the investment, you will decrease the cost. This is a good argument for SMRs. And now the one that is on the other side is that you need a lot of studies, and not very different volume of studies that cost money than for a big reactor. So for a big reactor, you will amortize those studies on a larger volume of electricity. Who are the leaders in SMRs? China. China is building one SMR, and the US with NuScale, which is quite advanced and has already the nuclear commission authorization on the design since, I think, 1.5 years. All countries have now project of SMRs. Now, if we look at the future and the far future, you can talk of fusion. The present nuclear technology is what's called fission, where you cut big atoms in pieces and you generate energy. The other one is just the contrary. You will fuse together two not hydrogen but deuterium atoms, and this also will produce electricity. There has been a big progress. This is why I mentioned that this year in the US. In the Lawrence Livermore lab, where they have done a fusion reaction, which is triggered by lasers. And they have recovered, I think, 70% of the energy they put into. So it's not yet break even, but it's much better than previous. And in Europe, we are building a very large international fusion. I don't dare to say prototype because I visited and it is huge, which is called ITER. And this is not the same technology. It's trying to create a plasma with what's called inertial nuclear fusion with magnets, very large. So this is technology for 30, 40 years ahead, but it's interesting to see that there is technical and scientific, more scientific progresses in that.
Great. Well, it seems we need an energy future with all kinds of energies, right? We cannot rely only on one.
No. We need an energy mix. We agree on that.
Yeah. Great. Well, let's move to your personal trajectory, Colette. So in previous episodes, we discussed what does it mean to be an independent board member. We also discussed what does it mean to have a portfolio of activities that you have. And this time I wanted to talk to you more about your personal involvement in encouraging more girls, especially from underprivileged backgrounds, to join science, be inspired to become scientists. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So since many years, with my husband, we are funding a program in Israel. It's called Sotkot. Sotkot means to break the glass. So it's a bit to break the glass ceiling, if you want. And it's done with an association, and they are selecting girls that want to do this program, that are interested in science and are ready to work more. And they give them, if you want, extra courses in physics and maths. I think maths is very important. So this starts with, I think, the 8th grade and goes until what's called the Bagrut, the end of the secondary studies. And it's very efficient, and the girls that do it are very, very happy. And today in Israel, there are nearly 3,000 girls that benefit from this program, which is a lot for a country like Israel.
Yeah, impressive, yeah.
Yeah, and they are also implementing this type of program in East Jerusalem, in Arabic schools, and in the south of Israel in Bedouin. So that's very good. We funded it since many years, and with the budget we gave year after year, they have found bigger budget and doing a big program. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to do something similar in France, which and to do it in the name of my parents. I found an association called Telemark, and they are very good in mentorship. So they are using this mentorship program for children same ages than in Israel. It's a bit different. Each boy or girl has two mentors, one a pedagogic mentor and one coming from companies. Companies, if you want, for people interested, provide free time for people to join this program. And the second mentor is there to give to those children codes, cultural codes they would never acquire elsewhere in another way.
Can you give us example? Yeah.
Yeah, they bring them to the opera, they go to see exhibitions. So those kids, because they are, as you said, in a very underprivileged social environment, would not do that. The parents have no time for that yet.
Yeah.
And of course, year after year, they become friends, and even those boys or girls become friends of the boys of girls of the person that is the mentor. So this is successful. And when I reached up to them through a friend, they were quite happy because I said we do nothing for alumni. So we launched this last year with 20 girls that are starting either engineering studies or medical studies.
Okay, so they are in their early 20s or...
Yeah, in the early 20s. And so I learned from Israel that you needed not only pedagogic support, but self-confidence support. So we have done a small type of mentorship with the jury members, which are members of the family, but not only, and younger people that can help them. And I think we really help them, not only with we give some money, but not only the money, we help them because those girls, because of the family, have no or little forward view on what they need. For example, one of them was accepted in an engineer school in Bordeaux, in southwest of France. She is living in Lyon. It was really at the last minute that she thought, "Oh, where will I live? I need to find some place not expensive." So, and my son helped her. Now they need to do internships. It's quite very difficult in the COVID and distant work environment. So if we are not there to help them, they will have difficulty. So I'm happy to do that. We're going to do a new promotion now in April. We're going to select probably around 20 girls as well.
Well, bravo. That contributes a lot to the society and community. And do you still feel that, I mean, historically, girls were less likely to go into science and math just because the way we were formatted, that it was more a boys' sector? Do you still feel it's the same in our society, or it's evolving?
No, it is evolving very, very slowly. It is the same. It is the
and
same.
So why is it so slow?
Because it is social codes. And if you think that in France, for example, women had the right to vote only after the Second World War, it's not so far away after all. So it has to change. It's a lot in the mindset of the teachers, of the parents, of the society in general.
Yeah.
All the images that are given girls are not those girls in engineering or IT science or whatever. So it has to be, and it will go as usually through examples of women that are succeeding, through probably some mindset changing. But it takes time. And it is in France. I don't know how it is in the US. India is not the case. For example, in India, I know quite well the IT sector. Being in IT is very well recommended for women. It's interesting to see that. Not in France. So it's a lot of a cultural type of thing.
But it's at so many levels, at school, but parents also. I mean, I see it with myself, like I have a daughter and I'm trying to make a point of helping her with her math homework, not just letting my husband help her, so that she can see that her mom is also able to do some math.
Yes, of course. You're right.
Role model definitely helps. Actually, I wanted to ask you a last question, because you're a busy woman. You're also independent board director at maybe like more than 5 companies, I guess. I know what you bring them, like an independent expert opinion with a lot of insight. But on your end, do you feel you're sharing your knowledge? What is the main reason you're participating to those boards?
I think you share your knowledge. You learn also, of course, you learn quite a lot. You share also your experience. You can speak of governance and do a lot of all countries have a lot of governance codes and whatever. But governance is a question of experience also. And being in this role for some years, sometimes I have a feeling that I already had a similar situation. Sometimes in a totally different company, and I think this can help. Bringing experience is always difficult. And the second thing, which is sometimes difficult, is bringing an independent view and asking questions and not be shy of asking questions and being courageous enough to say I don't agree. So. And that's not always easy because you don't want to just annoy the management. You're there also to help the management. But sometimes it's not bad to say, oh, I don't understand or I don't agree or whatever. That's an interesting role.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and not being a sounding board machine.
Yes, exactly. You don't want to just be a sort of register and say yes to everything you're told about.
Yeah.
And my view on that is that you never ask yourself enough questions. That's my experience is because sometimes there is not enough time, it's not on the agenda, you have no document, you're not sure to be right.
Right. Well, always a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Colette. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie.
And talk to you soon. This episode was recorded on January 31st, 2022. This is Leslie Palti-Guzman saying good day and good luck.